So when we talk about updating any of the scenario, let's just say implementing any of this behavior, we are trying to be more closer to the actual business scenario that would be there. I mean, I would have written whole of this logic, which I'm writing as a part of the method, as a part of the main parent method itself. But the sole purpose of modularizing this in as a part of API class is to get you a feel, saying unmanaged scenario will most probably come into picture when you do have some API classes which is helping you out with the create, update, delete scenario. Okay, so for example, when I talk about an update, here you would see that, okay, I am getting the data, I am storing, or I can say I'm storing it in some sort of a buffer. And during the final save execution, those data will be persisted into a database table. Now, be it via a modify statement, or let's just say if you are working, or let's just say if you are having some sort of a API method which is doing the save mechanism for you, then in that case, there will be you can expect the save method, or I can say post method of any such API classes being triggered from here. In case of item creation, so all this while we were discussing about the header creation, but when it comes to item creation as well, you would see that you will get the data in the form of a some sort of a nested structure, okay, where you would have a header data in the first row, and you would have something called percentage target, which would be carrying the line item information. And from this percentage target, you will be able to initialize certain variable using which we are populating the buffer, which we'll be using for storing the final data. Okay, and post which, the very important thing that we can never get rid of is the map parameter, because map parameter decides and show the response of what went well and what did not. So when you pass the data in the map parameter, it's implied that you are showing that that particular execution was a success. Instead, if it would have been an error, you might have populated those information as a part of a reported or failed parameter, or I can say reported and failed parameter instead, to show that that particular information, or I can say that particular line item record has failed during the execution, and you want certain error to be raised rather than saving those information onto the database. The good thing about rep execution cycle will be that if in any of the phase, be it a create, update, delete, or read, or any of the execution cycle which is going on in the behavior implementation side, then the saver class, which is a LSC of this, won't be triggered. Okay, so if you are returning any sort of a failed and reported parameter in the output, then you can expect then the saver execution will be skipped, because if the data is not a valid one, data is faulted, data is a faulty data, then definitely we cannot expect the data to be saved. But if everything goes well, the data will be saved. So that's something that we learned, and we implemented an unmanaged scenario. Other than that, we also started our journey while learning the, I can say, we started by extending the manage implementation that we did till now with certain actions. Okay, so we were discussing around the action, and we understood that actions can be of two types mainly. One can be a post action, another can be a get action. We started our discussion around the get action. When we say a get action, what it is: any action which allows you getting some certain information and transactionally seeing those actions are not supposed to update anything onto the database. Instead, they were meant for getting some information by writing some calculation, aggregation, and all the stuff of logic, which ideally is required for deriving the information that you are requesting for. For example, if I want, I can get the status. So there is a function. Now, if there is a function, I can expect that this particular function will have a importing parameter by default as that of the entity. So if you want to just have a look at it, I'll just execute the service metadata. You will just be able to have a look at it. I'll just, yeah, I'm at the service layer. I'll just open the service URL. Okay. And here I can say the metadata. And now if I just go here, you would see that the get status. And in the get status, as you can see, even though we did not specify any parameter, by default, as it's a function, part of an entity, by default, it would inherit the parameters of that of the entity. It means this get action will be an action for the relevant entity and it will get executed per line item record. So it's an instance function we can think of. Okay. Another one can be a static function. So when it comes to a static function is something which allows you executing and getting you the data independent of that of the item record on which it is getting executed. It means in order for this action to get executed, you actually do not need any sort of a key information of that of the item. So as you can see here, we specified couple of things. We specified the input parameter. So for example, here we are saying that we are expecting uh, travel status as an input, and in the response we'll be sending out the total open travel, so which is this particular entity that we are talking about. So if we specify the return type, if we specify the input type, we can expect that we'll be getting the total open travel, and that's what we tried executing yesterday. I'll just again go over here and we'll just simply say, I'll just say question mark. I want the travel status, and I'll just say travel status over here equal to, for example, I want all the accepted travel. So here, as you can see, it is giving me 1063, which is a travel which are currently in accepted state. If I want that instead of accepted, I want the open travel which is there. So I can see that, okay, there are total 3101. So it will go in the system and do the calculation as per what we implemented. So if I just go in the implementation that we just did yesterday, here you would see that we are getting certain key parameter, which is an importing parameter, which is nothing but that of the parameter that we had, and which is a travel status. Whereas if I just go back in the result parameter, I can expect that in the result parameter, I'll have the result structure that I specified, and I'll be comfortably able to update the information into that. And once I pass those information into the result parameter, it will start showing up on my output. Okay, so this is something that you can think of when it comes to a static function. Now, there is one more kind of function that we all would be interested in knowing. I'm over here. Okay, so here we can also have some sort of a factory, let's just say factory function. Perfect. So as you can see, there is a concept called factory, but when it comes to a factory, okay, the expectation will be that the function that we are talking about would be of kind post only. It cannot be of kind get. And that's the reason you will always see the factory action. So that's where we are now going to start our journey of today's day. So for example, consider a scenario where you are working on a functionality. Okay, so we are going to now discuss about the actions. The first one we are talking about over here is a post action, which is a factory action over here. Now, what I can consider as an example. So consider a scenario where you want a result in the form of an entity. So for example, anything that you are doing but you want a output result which should be a full entity. Now that can be anything. So consider a simplest scenario of copy, right? You are selecting a line item, you are copying over an item, and now your expectation is that another line item should get created based on that. So in that case, you can consider that particular action as a factory action. So what is a so specific in factory action? So factory action always returns the output which exactly match with that of the actual entity. So for example, I do have an entity on which I am creating a factory action, then the output of it will always match with that of the action. I'll just say factory action. And here I am saying, for example, copy. Okay. And now if I just go over here, I'll just say one. So did I specify anything else over here? No, right? I just specified that I do have a factory action whose name is copy. Correct. Now, if I just go over here and I'll just add a method for this. Here I can see that I do have a key parameter. I do have a map parameter. In the key parameter, I can expect the primary key of the entity on which I am creating it. I'll just go back and in the map parameter, oh, it's a failed one. In the map parameter, I can see that I do have a travel as well as booking. So it picks the whole entity directly just because I specified it as a factory action. Okay, now I'll just activate. Oh, I have to activate both of them. Then only it will allow me. Otherwise, it would give me an error because currently the definition, the behavior definition is also not active. Okay, so now I can see that, okay, I do have a copy action over here. If I just go back in my service metadata, I'll just comfortably remove this and I'll just set on a metadata over here. Okay, let me start searching for the copy. Now, any idea why it won't be available? Yes, exactly. So as we don't have the action exposed as a part of my behavior, definitely it won't be visible. So I'll just say use action and here I'll pass the copy. Okay, now I'll just activate. Now maybe you would have observed while we were using function, while we were using action, that we have to just specify whether it's a function or action. We are not supposed to specify whether it's a factory action, static action, instance action, or what kind of action it is. That's not the idea. Okay. So as if you can see, I do have a copy. Now there are certain flags also getting generated. We'll talk about them in a while, like what are those. As you can see, when I say copy, you will get one more important thing over here is that when it's a factory action, you are seeing the name. The return type is exactly the name of the entity. Okay. Importing parameter, it is deriving as this too. And the one more parameter it is deriving is result is active entity. Because when you are saying that you are going to respond back with exactly one line of data of that of the entity that you are trying to create right now, the expectation will be that you may or may not return the active data. When I say active data, what does it mean? It means you may or may not return the persisted data. You might also plan to return the draft data. Okay. So to show the status of the result data, whether it's an active entity or not, like we are specifying it for each and every record, there is one more specific field specifically for that copied over record that, okay, is active entity of that result record. So what it is, so that's why it is called result is active entity. So this is how the factory action skeleton will be looking alike. Now let's just discuss something more about the another post action. Consider that in my case, I'll just go over here in the service binding. I'll just open my travel information over here. Okay, so we do have a set of data over here, and we have said that, okay, uh, these are the status of those particular travels, right? Now, my ask is that I should be able to convert whatever travel are there into a accepted state that I want. If my travel is open, I should be able to select this and I'll just say, okay, set it to accept, set to accepted. And then that particular travel should be set to accepted. Or I can simply call out a button called accept, right? So that's something I am planning to do. So what I might be willing to do is I might be willing to select this record, and for this record, the value of overall status is something that I am planning to modify to a value called A, which is the accepted one. That's the expectation. So in that case, what I'll be doing is I'll just create an action. Okay. And in this action, I'll just say mark as expected, for example. Okay. And here I'll just simply say, I'll just return a result of one of, for example, $self. So the difference that you would see in case of a normal action and the factory action is that a normal action has the capability to return anything it wants. So for example, for the understanding purpose, I can also put it like this. So by this means, what we are planning to show is that this action will be able to return anything other than the current entity as well. But when it comes to factory action, you don't have any other option other than the current entity instance. Yeah, but still a normal action can also have the returning parameter as that of the entity data. Okay, and that's where we can specify $self over here. So when you start specifying $self, it expects that the current entity's line item of record will be written as a part of the output. Okay, so I'll just go over here and I'll just add the method. Okay, now let me just activate this. Okay, now as we have created an action over here, we have to expose that as well. So I'll just say I want to use this action in my, this particular behavior definition over here. Okay, and now what I'm expecting is that based on this particular exposure, I should be able to see this particular action in my output. So as you can see, I am getting a mark as expected over here. Okay, now when we say mark as expected, the system can expect that, okay, it would start generating some sort of a button over here. Okay, so now if you want to see the button as well over here, we can plan showing that over here. For example, I'll just simply go in my metadata extension of my travel, because we are planning to show this information in my travel entity, right? So in this particular travel entity, wherever we want to show any sort of such action, I'll just go over here and I'll just say that I want to show some sort of a action. Okay, I'll just say line item position. So for example, let's just consider this position as a 10. Okay, and here, okay. And now what we'll do is we'll just specify the importance of it. Let's just say medium one. Okay, and now we would specify that, okay, the action that we are talking about over here is not a standard one, but it's a for action. Okay, and we'll just specify the name of the action. That's where thing will come into picture, which is a data action. I'll just copy this and I'll just paste it over here. And I can also give it a label. I'll just say accept. Okay. Okay, now I'll just go back in the application and I'll just execute this. And as you can see, now I'm able to see a button called accept. So the expectation is that I should be able to select a line like this. And the moment I select this line, the button will get open. And then I should be able to click on this button. And the moment I click on this button, something should happen, like not like this. It should be able to convert this record into an accepted one. So that's the expectation that we do have, that these are it should behave. And for that, what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to do some sort of an implementation over here. So I'll just go back in my class over here, which is this said EO travel. So this is my API class. I don't need that. This is my, okay. So we don't need any unmanaged implementations for now. So let's just get rid of that. Okay, here I do have a mark as expected. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say that read the travel data based on the input parameter. Okay, so in this particular case, what we'll do is we'll just read out the data. I just read entity. So we have already learned the EML statement, what all things EML statement contain and how we can pass all those information. So the same in the same direction, we'll just go. I'll just say read entities of, and here which entity I'm planning to read. I'm planning to read this entity. So first we'll read the data and post which we'll try to update it. Okay, so I'll just say in local mode. Now, what's the purpose of in local mode? We are planning to say that we are writing the logic in the method of that business object itself. I'll just say entity, and which entity we are planning to read? We are planning to read the travel. Okay, so let's just try to read all the fields with corresponding key that we have received. And we'll just say result data. I'll just say the result. I'll just say reported data. I want, in case there are any failures, I also want to see the reported one. And here I want to see the LT failed. So our very first step should be to at least view if there are any data that we do have available. So I'll just say if my LT result is not initial, then we'll do something over here, right? Once we are getting the data, we'll just try to do some sort of operation on that. I'll just activate this. Okay, so object is activated. I just am putting a breakpoint over here. Now my breakpoints are in deactivate mode. I'll just deactivate those. Okay, now consider that I am planning to do some operation over here. I'll just click on accept. Now I am in the debugging mode, right? I'll just say F6. And here I should be able to see the variable. So I just say Windows show view. And here I am interested in looking at the variables. Oh, I guess something is going on in background. Okay, let's just give it a minute. I'll just say Windows show view variables. And here in the locals variable, I should be able to see the results. So in the result, I can see that, okay, it just derived one record, which is the one that we are currently working on. And here the overall status is O. Now we are planning to update this particular overall status to R, or let's just say A, because we are saying expected. We should have said it accepted, not expected. So I guess there is a typo. But yeah, nevertheless, the purpose is to set it to A. A means accept. We are accepting the travel. That's what we are planning to say. And for doing that, what we'll do is we'll just say modify entities off, and then we'll just try to populate it, right? So I'll just stop this over here. Okay, so there are a few ways with the help of which we can do that. So first, let's just understand mark has accepted what it is expecting over here. So it is expecting that I should populate some sort of a result parameter over here, right? So the moment I do that, the system will ultimately try to set the result parameters to something. So that's the main expectation over here. So any idea what we are or what we should be doing over here? Anyone? Yes. So the main purpose over here will be that the overall status that we are receiving, right? We should be ultimately getting those data, which is the old one. That's what we already did. Post which we modify the record. Okay. And next thing that we'll be doing is that we would be returning the response, okay, in order for the return data to have the final output. So for example, if I just say that my output should have the my output should have the recent information of what's going on, or let's just what did just happen, then it should be able to see that do have I do have the return status as accepted, and that's something that should flow to my output, because the moment you pass on those data to your output will start showing the recent information. Okay, so that's the expectation. So what we'll do over here is we'll simply say that I want to update something. So I'll just simply say modify entities of. Okay, and here we'll just simply say in local mode. Again, because we are in the context of an entity, right? So we are saying modify entities of over here. And now we'll try to update the entity, and the entity that we are planning to update again will be the travel. So what all fields we are planning to update, that's something that we have to pass. So I'll just say I want to update the fields, which is nothing but, for example, overall status. So let's just try to get the name of that particular property from the metadata extension itself. Here we will have it somewhere. So here we do have it. Copy it and just say overall status. This is something that I'm planning to update. Now, when we are planning to update any value, we have to pass the key parameter. We should be knowing, okay, what all things that we are planning to update. So as you can see here, we do have width value. And in the width value, I have to pass the key parameter of all the records. So in the LT result, I'll iterate on my LT result. So if I just put a cursor on this LT result, I am able to see that, okay, I do have percentage is draft, travel ID and everything. It has percentage TKY, which is a very important parameter. So I'll just say ls result in LT result, and here I'll populate the return parameter of it. So what I'll do is I'll just say percentage TKY. So TKY is nothing but a total key parameter. Okay, so the total key parameter ideally contains the combination of the exact key parameter. So if I just go over here, if I just put a cursor on this percentage TKY, or I can say LT result, for example, percentage TKY, the derived type of it, as you can see, is contain a combination of his draft and travel ID, which is the minimum thing that we ideally need in order for a record to be identified uniquely. Because when I say I am trying to update something, I have to pass the key parameter. Unless and until I don't pass the key parameter, my system won't be able to recognize the record. So I'll just say overall status equal to A. Correct. So that's what I'm just planning to update. Now, once we are doing this, once we do have this, there are pretty good chances that we might end up into error. So I'll just say, in case I'm having any sort of a reported data, I'll just say LT reported. I can also get some sort of a failed I'll just say LT update failed. Same way, let's just rename this to also update failed. Okay, now let's see what all things we also can have. I'll just say map. So we can also have mapped. Okay, so this map will ultimately give me the map parameter that is compatible with that of the output parameter, which this method is also having. So as I can see over here, mark as expected is having a map parameter, which is type response early of this. So that's something that it would map it to. I'll just activate this. Again, I would put a breakpoint over here. Just go back to my method. I'll just say accept. Okay, I'll just open the view of my variables. Okay, I'll just have 6. And here I can expect that I am getting some data in my LT result parameter over here, which is giving me the record. I'll just go F6 again over here. Okay, and here I should have some sort of a thing in the reported. Perfect, which is not there. It means there is no error, and that's why fail will also be empty. Okay, and now if I just go in my one more parameter that I had, which is called mapped, which is also empty. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to populate the data into the result. Okay, I just say execute this for now. The issue over here is that it would try to open this, so which is anyway wrong. But maybe I'll just try refreshing this. But as you can see, the data just got updated. But the only